Dear viewers, thank you for joining us. You're watching our weekly program, Talk to Obn on Obn Horn of Africa. I am your host and producer, Adis Asafa. On this edition today, we're going to discuss the GERD hydropolitics and all the contentions on the GERD, the journey that the GERD have passed through. And I joined by Dr. Jacob Arsano, lecturer and researcher on the Nile, as well as hydropolitics analyst. Doctor, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has reached here through so many ups and downs. Can you tell us all the journey to have the actual development of Grand Ethiopian Renaissance time from early on up until this time?
Well, that is a long story. We have been with Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam for the last 12 years. It started with the inauguration, as you remember, in 2011. And then the Ethiopian government encouraged Egypt and Sudan to cooperate and to understand that Ethiopia's dam construction is for the best benefit of Ethiopia's development. And Ethiopia also made it sure through several design and planning preparations that the construction of the dam and the filling of the dam and the production of electricity from the dam has nothing to do with significant harm on Egypt and Sudan. But if Egypt and Sudan cooperate and take it in goodwill and with good faith, what Ethiopia does is not against their interest, then the dam would even be helpful for Egypt and Sudan to improve their development situation, especially, augmenting their energy pulling from the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam in particular, and from Ethiopia in general. So Ethiopia made it sure also that third-party experts can come in and evaluate whether or not this dam is really in any way significantly harmful for Egypt and Sudan. And international panel of experts who are employed. And these expert groups from 4 different countries in different fields of dam study. And they were joined also by 2 well-known experts from the 3 countries. And this study was carried out for 1 and 3 months. And at the end of that, it was reported by this independent international panel that the dam will not harm Egypt and Sudan. And the dam construction is in the best quality manner. And then this dam is, as it is being constructed, with necessary care and keeping with the international standard, is a firm dam, and a dam which does not have any implications whatsoever in terms of its quality and so on. So, and the report of the international panel of experts also suggested that if Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt would like to further pursue, for example, on environmental, socioeconomic issues, they can employ, again, independent, researchers and consultants, and then they can have, checking on that progress also. So with this, Ethiopia was very confident that the dam building was acceptable and meeting international standard. And Ethiopia was also confident that the dam will not have harm, significant harm on Egypt and Sudan. And that was attested by third-party experts because the dam is very important for Sudan and especially in terms of controlling flood, where Sudan suffers, every year, and Sudan would have additional and stable water flow to use for her expansive agricultural lands, and Sudan also would benefit from energy, clean energy that comes from Ethiopia. So with this consideration, Sudan was really closely cooperating with Ethiopia for a number of years. But at the last phase of the dam, where we are now, especially since the starting of the filling of the dam in 2020, now we have reached now, third filling stage. It is, stage and phase-based filling, and that has so far not really created any significant problem in Egypt and Sudan. So this dam is, as far as Ethiopia is concerned, going very well. And this dam is constructed on the solely on Ethiopian resources and with the full support of the entire Ethiopian population, and with the great hope that the Ethiopian people put on this dam, that this dam will be, a great stage for solving the energy problem in Ethiopia, where 60% of the population is, in darkness in terms of, electricity and so on. So I think this dam is now in a very good stage, and it's a very good news for Ethiopia. And it is also a very good news for Egypt and Sudan. This dam is not going to bring any significant harm on them. The only thing is that they have to take it with open heart and with open mind, that this dam is also useful for them and for the region.
Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia have locked horns due to the filling and completion of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam so far. Now, recently, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed met with Abdel Fattah al-Sisi of Egypt in Cairo. How do you see the meeting of Abiy Ahmed with that of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi? And what would this show in peace and tranquility dynamics of the two nations?
The two leaders of the two great countries met in Cairo, and that meeting was an incidental one, because the main purpose of the gathering of the neighboring countries of Sudan in Cairo was to look into the ways and means of resolving the Sudanese current conflict between the two leading generals and the leaders of Sudan. So it was a good opportunity, I think, that President al-Sisi and Prime Minister Dr. Abiy could have the opportunity to meet and then to raise the issue of a Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. I think that is what Egypt desired, to talk with the Ethiopian leader, which means that they were trying to appeal. I think I was not there, so as I guess, and there was not detailed reports of an nitty-gritty of the discussions, but I can imagine that Egypt was trying to appeal that Ethiopia can stagger, filling of the dam, or Ethiopia consider to maybe not to fill the dam, so that would have been the desire from Egyptian side. But from the Ethiopian side, the three fillings did not really create any harm in any significant way. So the fourth filling is now being prepared, and this filling has also no intention, no indicator to harm downstream countries, particularly Egypt. And I think this was the message, um, you know, given by our prime minister, and that was also maybe what the Egyptian president wanted in part, but they would have liked to listen that Ethiopia will not fill the dam. So generally, I think this meeting is incidental, and the opportunity is good to check on each other that Ethiopia is doing the business, as has been started, and Egypt wanted also that Ethiopia can assure, if possible, to stop the dam or to stagger the filling of the dam or sign an agreement, committing Ethiopia to a number of, Egypt's desire, which may not necessarily be that Ethiopia would accept, because that would be too much pressure on Ethiopia and too much giving out from Ethiopia's national interest. I think that level was not discussed, but generally the meeting was a good opportunity that we can see eye to eye and catch up with what's happening on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
The two leaders met and discussed means to overcome the existing dispute on the GERD. Do you have any note about the nitty-gritty of their agreement? And if not, do you speculate on what ways and agendas do the two leaders agreed upon?
From a report, I managed to, read, and also from the statement of the Ethiopian government, and reports written also from, different sources in Egypt, Egyptian Independent, Al-Haram, and also the Ethiopian Reporter. The reports were pretty similar, and there was not really a big issue and a big row, big disagreement during their talk. But their talk was not a negotiation, but there was expression of goodwill, where they said that negotiation between Ethiopia and Egypt on account of Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam will continue, in the near future, and the two governments will expedite, the future agreement. So one good thing I really observed in those reports was that Egypt did not insist on a binding agreement, which they have been really singing and dancing around the issue, which they were taking to the Arab League, to the UN, to European Union, to individual countries, insinuating Ethiopia that Ethiopia's dam is against Egypt's interest, and it is against 100 million Egyptian population. And that tone was not expressed from the reports. But I think the Egyptians really more or less understood that their claim and their pressure to make Ethiopia sign, commit itself even against, the interest of Ethiopian country's core interest, to sign a binding agreement that did not really emerge. I did not see that phrase in the agreement, which means that Egypt is interested, to continue to dialogue on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and to make sure that the future feelings will not harm Egypt, and Ethiopia can take the necessary measures as promised and as indicated in the design and the planned documents. and in the progress of the construction of the dam during the past 12 years. So I think it is more of a tone of understanding each other's side and interest, and the big kind of words were not expressed from the Egyptian side. I think that's good for them, and that is the way they have to really continue to dialogue in order to serve the best interest of Egypt and also Ethiopia.
This grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam used to be headlines in various international media outlets over a couple of years, especially the taking of the case to the World Bank and to the US by Egypt, and lately Egypt brought the case to the Arab League. You see, now, out of the blue, Egypt want to meet and discuss with Ethiopian Prime Minister. How do you see these all shifts? How do you see all changes of thoughts from the Egyptian side? And coming to a roundtable discussion from taking the case to the Arab League. How do you see this?
But I think this meeting is an indicative of realization of the real situation. The real situation is regarding the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is not to take it anywhere outside the basin or outside, the dialogue between Egypt and Ethiopia, if possible, to come to an agreement which will not harm Ethiopia or Egypt. That means an agreement in the best interest of the two countries. That is a negotiable issue. But I think Egypt has realized that taking the case everywhere around the world, to individual-friendly countries or to organizations like the Arab League, to which Egypt is a member and a founding member, and virtually a leader of the Arab League, or taking it to the World Bank or to UN Security Council would not work, because this is a matter of development. This is a matter of building a dam in one country and making use of it in the country which builds the dam. And since it is a transboundary water resources, and the assurance that Ethiopia has been giving that Ethiopia will not make any significant harm as a result of building these or other dams. I think that has been realized slowly by Egypt, and Ethiopia's firm position and Ethiopia's discipline kind of progress building the dam. The commitment of the Ethiopian population, in its entirety to support the dam, because this is Ethiopia's core interest and the benefit of society's development. So that has been slowly being realized in Egypt, and Egypt can benefit from cooperation with Ethiopia rather than making noise around and making really a case for confidence. I think that has been more or less realized. I think hopefully that Egypt will continue with this, and there will be a better time for Ethiopia and Egypt to cooperate in a sensible manner.
Doctor, besides the GERD issue, the two leaders focused especially on future social and economic cooperation, as well as regional peace and security. Would this show a clear change of mood from animosity to mutual cooperation between Ethiopia and Egypt?
Yeah, I think these kind of friendly statements and commitments between the two leaders for peace, security, and development is a welcome kind of interaction. I think this is diplomatically usual, but it's also interesting that this kind of interaction in the midst of squabbles about Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has a special place as a nice intention to do good relations between the two countries for the future. So I think it's a welcome statement as far as I'm concerned, but it's
Okay.
also diplomatic rather than programmatic.
A statement released by Ethiopian Government Communication Service states the two countries have discussed the need to enhance partnership without external interference and based on mutual respect and the principle of give and take. What does this mean for the region that is always under the interest and interference of global superpower?
I think also this is a very good statement, especially in relation with Egypt. It is unfortunately Egypt that has always interested to drag in external pressure on Ethiopia in order, to enhance Egypt's undue interest against Ethiopia. So if the statement is taken seriously, I think this is a very good statement and the message is welcome, and that Egypt in the future can concentrate on dialoguing with Ethiopia, not only on upstream dam building, in this case, Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam, but on various issues in northeastern Africa. These are the two renowned and influential countries in the region, and they can make a lot of difference if they cooperate. And this statement is a very good one, and it needs pursuing in earnest and in good faith. So it's a good statement as far as I'm concerned, and it's a welcome statement.
All right. The leaders of Sudan's neighboring countries who met in Cairo to discuss ways of resolving the current problem in Sudan have urged the conflicting parties in the country to agree on unconditional ceasefire. How impactful would this be on stopping the current conflict in Sudan?
Oh, well, it depends on how the Sudanese fighting parties really read their own minds. I mean, a matter of national conflict is a matter of resolving the issue from the home base rather than, pressurized by outsiders. And the leaders who met in Cairo, I think they did a good service to advise the Sudanese parties to come to senses and to come to, dialogue in order to bring peace in Sudan, so that they can refrain from continuing the conflict. And the countries gathered, the leaders gathered in Cairo, put a strong message. But this message can work only if the Sudanese parties accept it with goodwill and with full heart understanding of the plight of their own country. So it's a good message, but at the same time, this depends on whether or not the Sudanese parties accept it and when.
The leaders have also called on the warring parties to immediately conduct an inclusive dialogue based on the interest of the people of Sudan and without the interference of external forces. Do you think the leaders of the two warring parties do this?
Well, like I said, it depends on them. So if they think only in terms of their power, and if they continue to eliminate each other and come to full power in Sudan, then the message does not fall on fertile ground. But if the Sudanese leaders and the warring parties really come to their senses and take the option of dialogue, whatever comes as an outcome would be the best for Sudan's future, and to heal the plight of the Sudanese population, which is now in the worst state of affairs.
Okay, Dr. Jacob Arsano, a lecturer and researcher on Nile and also geopolitics analyst. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, dear viewers, thank you for being with us. This brings you the end of our today's episode. See you next time with another edition. Take care. Bye-bye.